There are many ways that you can mask a kit, but today I'm going to go over the two ways that I like to mask my kit, which are going to be universal for whatever kit you're working on. And a third way that I'm going to talk about is going to be kind of kit specific, but we'll talk more about that later. But first, let's talk about what masking is and what it's used for. Masking is the process in which a painter will cover up or mask certain sections of a kit so that they can paint a part without having to paint the entire thing. This is really important when it comes to resin kits because unlike Bandai plastic kits, we're not able to separate out pieces completely, so we need a way to be able to make sure that we can cover up certain parts for paint and leave certain parts open so we can paint it. So when it comes to the final product, parts of it are white are going to be white and parts of it that need to be blue are going to be blue. So with that said, let's get into our first style of masking, which I call cutout masking. Now, as the name implies, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be laying our mask over a piece and then we're going to be cutting it out to the shape that we're going to need. I like to use the cutout style for pieces that are going to have a nice edge or deep panel lines that I can use to set as a boundary, and this is going to be very good for pieces that are going to follow a curved panel line that you might find in some of your kits. Now that we have our piece selected, the first thing we're going to do is get our tape ready by putting it down on a cutting mat. This is going to serve two purposes. One, we're going to avoid coming back and constantly having to remove tape from our tape dispenser. After a while, when you're doing this process over and over and over again, it helps to have a lot of tape ready on hand for you to cut out and put on your piece. The second reason we put our tape down on a cutting mat is to eliminate some of the tape's adhesion. Reason being is we don't want our tape to be too strong that when we peel off our mask that we're pulling up some of the paint underneath, so it's important to cut down on a little bit of that adhesion as much as we can. Now, if your tape isn't sticking to the piece, don't worry, you can always cut out a new piece and start over. Remember, it's better to sacrifice the tape than it is to sacrifice the tape and the piece. Once your tape is ready to go, cut out a larger piece as you can and put it over the shape as much as possible. The reason you want to do this is because we want to avoid layering our tape, which is going to cause our knife to bind as we cut out our borders. As you lay your tape down, what you're going to want to do is try to push some of the tape down into the panel lines so you know exactly what you're going to cut out. I like to use the tips of my tweezers and my meat skewers, but you can also use a toothpick to help get that tape down into the panel lines to give you a trace line for what you're going to cut out. With your outline all set, it's now time to cut out the mask. It's important that you take your time and go over your piece slowly to make sure that you cut your piece out completely. Once you're done, you can go ahead and remove the excess and start painting that piece that you just so beautifully masked. The best part about the cutout method is that you can use either side of the mask. What I mean by that is you can either leave the inside of the mask and paint around the tape, or you can leave the outside of the mask and paint inside the tape. See which one works best for you in your painting styles, and don't be afraid to mix them up and find out which one works for which scenario. As a bonus tip, it's important that your blade is able to cut your mask out cleanly, so I recommend starting out with a new blade anytime you begin masking a new kit. And before we move on to section 2, don't forget to like and subscribe for some more model kit and mental health content. On to our second method, which I like to call the Jigsaw Method. How this works is we take our mask and we cut it into tiny little squares or rectangles and begin to piece together our mask around the area we want to cover. This works great for raised or recessed areas, but can also be used in place of the cutout method if you feel like this works better. The best part about this method is that you only need to be precise along one edge, and once all of your edges are lined up, you can go ahead and fill in the rest with as big or as small of a piece as you need. This also helps because you have the added security of multiple layers of tape on your piece to make sure that none of that paint seeps through and gets to the parts underneath. I do find this method to be a little bit easier than our cutout method, but it can be a little bit more time consuming, especially if you're doing more intricate shapes or designs. Both of these methods are going to have their pros and cons, and in some situations you can even combine your cutout mask with your jigsaw mask to get the exact coverage that you need. But our third method is going to be the entire reason why I decided to give resin kits a go in the first place. This is a folder from a company called Cantonese Studio. When you open this folder up, what you're going to find are multiple large sheets of masking tape, but upon closer inspection, you're going to realize that there are already designs cut into this masking tape. That's because this company specializes in creating resin-specific masking sets to allow you to mask off resin kits with ease. Not only do these sets match the pieces exactly, it saves so much time because you don't have to tape and retape sections because it doesn't quite fit or it doesn't work quite well. I can just peel the correct mask for the piece, line it up, and lay it down. If you have some resin kits but are dreading having to mask certain sections, check out the wide selection of pre-cut masking sheets at the Gundam Place, and while you're at it, grab some paint from Midwest Hobby & Craft to get all the different colors you'll need to complete that custom project. A few things before we wrap up. Remember, it's always better to sacrifice the tape than it is to risk it and sacrifice both the tape and the piece and then have to do it all over again. Second, be sure that your tape isn't too strong for your piece that you end up peeling up some of your paints. What you can do is you can take your tape and put it down on your cutting mat and peel it up once or twice before ultimately laying it down for use and then put it onto your kit. Finally, when it comes to removing your mask, make sure you take your time and peel slowly. I know we're excited to see all of our hard work and see what the results are, but remember, your tape is still connected to the paint on your piece. Masking is a skill that can absolutely transform your painting game. With a little bit of color variation on your masks, you can take your paint job from looking good to looking great. With that said, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some value in this video, and remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you in the next one.